Okay, dear participants, I think we have seen some sort of introduction in the morning session. What are biosignals, how cells will generate electrical potential, and what are the parameters that we measure, like blood pressure, temperature, or maybe flow. Maybe there are many other parameters which may come in the course. So we understood something what we are. So we are to do with the body. Then what? Wait, what is this? Yeah, yeah. Then what we can see here is there are different systems in the body. I mean, all of us may be aware of these things, but only thing is just for clarity, I'm just coming for a review. So we can see one as a cardiovascular system. So what is the function of this cardiovascular system is collect the blood from all over the body, or maybe blood will reach heart from all over body into right atrium, and then it comes to right ventricle, then it goes to lungs and comes back to left atrium, and then it will come to left ventricle. From left ventricle, it will go for circulation through this aorta. So this is the function of cardiovascular system. So outside there are arteries and veins, and maybe venols and arterioles, a lot of distribution system. So this is the blood distribution system. But this blood distribution system is also having associated with, well, let us say, the lungs, where lungs will get oxygen from outside the body, and they bring into the lungs alveoli, where oxygen, the blood will go and then exchange its carbon dioxide with oxygen and carry that oxygen to different parts of the body. So this whole system, what we can call it as a cardiovascular system, it will work as a synchrony with both heart function, heart muscles, as well as lungs, these sort of things. Whereas there is other system, let us, if we see the lungs, so the lungs is a respiratory system. Here air will come from outside and that will go to lungs and alveoli, and when the blood come into alveoli and then come in contact with oxygen, then it will give out carbon dioxide, take the oxygen inside, and it will come back again, reach the heart, and then it will be distributed all over the body. So these different systems here, cardiovascular system, it is not bothered about what is happening. Even blood won't get exchanged in the lungs. There is oxygen, the carbon dioxide, they won't get exchanged. But the function of heart is just take the blood and then try to send it out. So that is the one cardiovascular system. And respiratory system, whether it is sufficient blood is coming into the lungs or not, or it doesn't matter. So whenever there is the carbon dioxide or maybe carbon dioxide present in the blood, it will exchange with the oxygen and then it will send back, I mean, it will just exchange the gases. Whereas nervous system, here, this will collect the information from different parts of the body, either for regular functions or maybe to take decisions which are related to outside world. So it will collect the information and try to take appropriate decision and do all required actions, or maybe it will issue commands to each and every part of the body, either like what we are doing now. We are switching on the computer and then we are looking at the computer, we are listening to the speech or whatever it is. All these things are controlled by the nervous system. So this is another set of another system. Whereas chemical system, it will take food from outside or whatever that comes through mouth or from anywhere else. Let us say by even through pipe, we could able to make food to reach the stomach, then there will be appropriate juices will be secreted, and then it will be digesting, and it will generate the appropriate form of energy that is required by the body parts. So that energy will be transferred into blood, and that blood will again circulate this energy also to different cells of the body. So this way, there are different systems: cardiovascular system, respiratory system, nervous system, chemical system, endocrine system. There are set of systems which are, one way they are independent, and at the same time they are dependent on the one or other systems of the body. So the whole entire body is, we can say, semi-independent systems are present, and these semi-independent systems, if they function in coherence, in coordination with each other, then the body will be healthy and normal. Suppose if any system is not functioning properly, or maybe it is not coherent with the core systems, then we'll say we'll have complaints or maybe diseases that may come up either in one system, or maybe they will be percolated to the other systems and these sort of things. So among that, we'll try to understand mainly for the cardiovascular system, and how the cardiovascular system is being brought into action, and what sort of measurements that we can make, or maybe how we can assess the functioning of the cardiac system is doing well or not. If at all there are abnormalities, then how they look like, these sort of things we try to understand. Similarly, nervous system or respiratory system, there are systems how we can assess, but we are not discussing much because of lack of time. And we can even go after this to some extent, the imaging modalities or maybe imaging instruments, how they will bring in the information about the body. These sort of things we'll discuss in the afternoon now. Now we'll go to cardiovascular system. So the measurements done on cardiovascular system or maybe on heart are what we call them as electrocardiogram, phonocardiogram, echocardiogram, CT scan, MRI, and magnetocardiogram. So the signals that are recorded in association or in accordance with the functioning of the heart, or these are the waveforms or maybe images. That's what we can see. If we see electrocardiogram, it is very familiar, and all of you might be aware of this one or heard sometime in your career up to now. So here, what we can see is there a waveform. This is a very flat, and then there is a small wavelet. That's what we can see, and there is one long deflecting waveform, and again there is one more wavelet, and then another wavelet, like this. And these are given some names. So this is given as P wave, the small one in the beginning, and then Q and R and S. All these three letters are given to this large deflection. So this is called as QRS complex. And this is a T wave. This is again like a P. I mean, the entire waveform is given only one name, and there is one U. This represents some activity. So this waveform, as I said earlier, how each cell will get depolarized and generates an action potential. Similarly, so the cardiac cells or cardiac tissue or cardiac cells, each one of them will get depolarized and repolarized. So that activity of depolarization and repolarization will be keep on going in these cells. But to start with how to function, so we can say at right atrial top region, there is one small set of cells called as sinoatrial node. So those cells are having some capacity or auto generation of the action potential. So they will be generating action potential, and that will be spread to the entire atria, this is the left atria and right atria for both, and that spread, and then that spread of impulse will make this muscle of atria to contract. So this spread of impulse, or maybe the action potential, what we have studied about a single cell, when we combine a group of cells and try to record in some fashion, I mean, it's not that, okay, we will be going on to the heart site and then try to record. If we record in some fashion, that we can see a waveform showing this sort of deflection. Right, if it is deflection means our 2 points we are measuring the potential difference. So that potential difference is showing this deflection. And then this impulse, after activating or maybe depolarizing the atria, it will come to a AV node, which is in between the upper and lower heart region, that is fourth chambers junction, that is the upper atria and ventricular junction, that is atrioventricular node, that will stimulate, that will come here, and from there it will it is got delayed sometime, and then it will be spreading down like this, and then it will come here and it will activate the lower part of ventricle, either left and right both, to simultaneously, and make these cells to contract, or maybe these two ventricle to contract and push blood from this ventricle to upward. So first, when atria contracts, so right atrial blood will come into right ventricle, and left atrial blood will come into left ventricle. Then when the ventricle contract, the blood in right ventricle will go to lungs, and blood in left ventricle will go to aorta and that external circulation. So this, the muscle of the ventricle will be much stronger compared to atria. So when they contract, they will exert a lot of energy. This lot of energy or force, so that will push blood with high pressure to external circulation, because the blood has to go through the body and then it has to come back again to the atria. So that's the reason the number of cells that get depolarized and the action potential generated by this number of cells will result into the action potential, the sum of those action potentials that result into QRS complex. And later, then the cells of ventricle will get relaxed. So when they get relaxed, then this T wave will be recorded. And similarly, when there is the atria contraction, or maybe in the isoelectric region, so the atrial cells will be just trying to push blood into ventricle after T wave. So this is what you can see, but it is only in a very young children. It will be available as the age approaches. This sort of U wave may not appear. So basically ECG, what we can come across is a P wave, QRS complex, and T wave. So these are the three wavelets, or maybe let's not confuse with wavelets. Waveform, three small waveforms that we can call this combined waveforms. We call it as ECG, electrocardiogram, or the functioning of the electrical activity of the heart. So here, maybe the shape of this waveform is P, QRS, and T wave, or maybe the sharpness at which they are rising and they are falling, or maybe the minimum or maximum amplitudes of each waveform, or the duration of this waveform, or maybe the length. So all these things are proportional to the amount of cells that are depolarizing, or the number of cells that get depolarized in atria as well as in ventricle. So ventricle depolarization, we can see QRS amplitude. The atrial depolarization, we can see in P wave. Similarly, the ventricular repolarization, we can see in the T wave. So this will represent the depolarization, repolarization activity of the heart. So whether this propagation of the sinoatrial node impulse to atrial region, or maybe from atria to ventricle, and sorry, SV node, from SV node, AV node, from AV node to left ventricle or right ventricle. Suppose if there is some blocks here, the shape of this waveforms will be different. So based on these sort of things, they will try to understand how the heart function is happening in every body. So for these things, I mean, it's not just like that, whatever we see here or discuss is the final. I mean, for this, I mean, there is a lot of research, or maybe a lot of struggle had gone in. So the pioneer, what we whom we can remember is Einthoven. So he first recorded the electrical activity of the heart, or maybe the functioning of the heart, with the help of a small device, capillary galvanoscope. This graph showed the recording, the functioning of the relation of the activity of the heart and the amplitude and maybe the shape of these waveforms. So he established this in somewhere in 1906, and over a year, 100 years, I mean, we are following it. Maybe in 1924, he is awarded the Nobel Prize for this invention. So the first electrocardiogram recording, so it was taken like this. So one electrode is placed here, other electrode is placed, and they are recording the waveform. And maybe the modern electrocardiograph, you can see this is the instrument where we can connect to the body, or maybe electrodes are connected to the body, and these waveforms, they will be recorded as like this. You can see that there are totally 12 records. So this is called as 12 lead ECG recording. Why the 12 lead ECG recording, and what is the background behind it? I mean, we can just see in coming slides. So the starting of understanding the electrical activity of the heart with the help of a graph is done by Einthoven, and maybe the way that what we record is by placing electrodes on the body and try to record the waveforms. So the modern system is coming up like this, and the modern system as we are following today is same one what the Einthoven established in 1906. So that is a 12 lead ECG. So what is meant by 12 lead? So this is Einthoven's photo. So 12 leads in the sense, suppose if we take our heart always on the left side or right side of the heart of the body, it's on the right side of the body, right? So it will be located somewhere on the left side here, and then it is inclined to towards lower side rather than vertical. It is inclined. So it is in this fashion. If my pointer is as it's moving. So now if we stand up like this is right arm, and this is the left arm, and this is the right leg, and this is the left leg. A person stands like this, and then, as I said earlier, the impulse starts with starts with the SN node, and it will come to AV node. Then it will go to bottom of the heart, that is apex, and then it will spread over the ventricular walls in this fashion. So this, if we try to how come this has gone? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Sorry. I don't know. It has gone somewhere else, and then now it has come back again. Yeah. Now I'm on back onto this thing. Yeah. This if we stand up like this, and then if we see the heart is in this position, so what he proposed was, suppose if we place an electrode at this point on right wrist, and one electrode on the left wrist, and if we try to record over time the difference between these two positions, and we can notice a waveform like this, what is shown just above the head. Rather, if we keep one electrode on the right wrist and other electrode on the left leg, and if we start recording, then we can see the waveform going like this. And if we keep electrode on the left wrist and left leg and record the potential variation between these two electrodes, the waveform that what we see is this fashion. So the first one between right wrist and left wrist, if we record, that is called as lead one. Lead, I mean, what it meant was recording between 2 points. They call it as lead. So here we call this as the lead one. And when we record between right wrist and left leg, that is near ankle, the potential variation that what we can see is called as lead 2. And similarly, left arm and left leg, we record it as lead 3. So this way, the waveforms that we record from different electrodes are given a name, that is lead 1, lead 2, and lead 3 as just names. Whereas right leg, because as I said, we are recording as differential input. As we have seen morning class, there is a differential amplifier, there is a bioamplifier, what we have seen. All that what we require is we have to record between A and B points. So then the ground point what they have taken is the right leg. So right leg will act as ground, and any other 2 points, right arm and left arm, will be 2 points across where we can measure the potential. So that is called as lead 1. Similarly, see, instead of right arm and left arm as one, now here there is another combination that what they made. See, AVR, augmented right arm. So augmented in the sense, left leg, left arm and left leg, these two are connected with appropriate resistors, or maybe with equal resistance, they join together. That will be taken as 1 point, and right arm is taken as another exploring point. And if we record, the waveform that what we can notice is this shape. That is called as AVR. Similarly, we alternate this combination and then exploring point. This is AVL. So left arm is taken as exploring electrode here, and the other two are joined. Whereas here, left foot is taken as exploring point and the other two are joined. So here, by this combination, we are getting 3 configurations. So these are called as augmented leads. So the first one, what we get potential is bipolar leads, or maybe between 2 different positions of the body, absolute positions of the body. Whereas here, we try to explore the augmented, or maybe when these 2 positions are connected and the center point and the other part of the body, if we could record, that is called as augmented recording. So this way they get 6 leads, and then by placing one electrode at different positions on the chest. This is a V1, V2, V3, V4, V5, V6. So at these 6 positions, these are fixed positions, that is 4th intercostal space, on the right sternum of the body, and again fourth intercostal space on the left sternum of the body, and like this it is mentioned. So these 6 positions, these, and the other part is take all the right arm and left leg electrodes, weigh appropriately, and then make the reference point. So that is called as Wilson central point. Between the Wilson central point and these electrodes we will be exploring, and so each one will give one waveform. So this will give 6 waveforms. So these 6 positions of electrodes will give 6 waveforms. The other 4 electrodes will give, with different combinations, another 6 electrodes. So these 6 patterns. So this 6 plus other 6, they are totally called as 12. So this is called as 12 lead ECG. And whereas the number of electrodes we use to record this 12 lead ECG are only 10. So 4 on the limbs and 6 on the chest. This is not that a fluke method what we are trying. So actually the reason behind this is, if we assume there is a heart in the center of the body, and the electrical activity in the heart, if we say it is starting from the rightmost part of the right top of the heart, and it is going to the lower bottom of the left side. So there will be an electrical vector what we can notice here, and this electrical vector, if we try to project on maybe as that Einthoven triangle, what we have seen earlier, this, sorry. Yeah, in this Einthoven triangle, if we project this vector, so the projection of this vector, over time, how the electrical activity that goes in this in the three-dimensional, if we try to project onto this right arm and left arm plane, so that what we can see is the lead 1. Similarly, lead 2, lead 3, AVR, AVL, they are the projections of this vector, the central electrical vector, in different angles. So this will be directly perpendicular, whereas this Einthoven triangle is the 60 degrees on each side, so that you will be projecting on the sides of this triangle, and maybe the augmented will be projected in the corners of this triangle. So whereas the chest leads, those 6, they will be projected onto the third dimensional, that G direction of the body. So these amplitudes and these waveforms, whatever we see, oh, sorry, again it has given some problem. Yeah, see these 6 waveforms and these 12 waveforms and these directions that give the information about the actual muscle function, or maybe the cells function in the body in the three-dimensional direction, which direction the cells got damaged, or whether they are functioning proper or not. This is the way that what we can understand. So that's what he established a study, and that is still followed. And what we do is we are slightly modifying or maybe refining those things, and we are still following the same procedure. So this is what we see as a bedside monitoring. We record see these are lead positions, and these, though instead of connecting at wrist, I mean sometimes you can connect even at different positions, but there will be.
Sir, sir, one question from participants, sir.
Yeah, please.
How to measure the temperature using plastic strip thermometer?
Plastic strip thermometer.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, the plastic strip thermometer, will vary its color based on the temperature. The plastic of the material, it is only material property. Based on the material, based on the temperature, the material will change its color from say black to some any green color or light green color, different to different levels. So there they will be grading numbers which color it is representing which temperature or these sort of things. But that strip thermometers are very low sensitive thermometers. We cannot measure very very correctly, but it gives an approximate value. Yeah, am I clear?
Okay, sir. Continue, sir.
Yeah. Yeah, this ECG recording, that's our bedside monitoring, and what we can see, it is connected like this and then go. But what we have to understand is, we don't have to exactly go for that wrist positions or whatever those positions they place. But what it happens is, basically there is an electrical potential that is getting generated in the heart, and when that potential moves from sinoatrial node, or maybe the top left of the top right of the heart to bottom left of the heart. So that wave vector will get projected to different positions of body in different ways. So even if we place here and here, or maybe sometimes it will be placed on chest, just above or maybe just on shoulder, at shoulders, and they try to record. So they do get a waveform, but the amplitudes, the shapes, and all those things may not be as it is mentioned. But if we want to get the exact waveform shapes and then do the amplitudes and the sharpness, we may have to follow the positions that are mentioned earlier. But if we want to know only the functioning, whether it is going, suppose for one heartbeat or to other heartbeat, if we want to just know, maybe wherever we connect, and maybe appropriately, we can just get two waveform peaks for each heartbeat. One waveform peak we can get, and if we try to take the distance between these two, then we can find out. But the shape of the waveform and the functioning of the heart, whether it is correct diagnosis, may not be possible if we take ECG from different positions of the body. Okay, so these are methods of measurements. This is a treadmill test. So when we are doing exercise, and at the same time we can even monitor the blood pressure also. So how it is really varying. These sort of things are known. Or Holter monitoring, when a person is doing a normal day-to-day activity after discharge from hospital or before going to hospital. So it is connected like this. So all that what we will be recording is the normal ECG. So this is very slow moving waveform. But this all 24 hours ECG will be stored in a tape. There's a Holter monitor. So that is the one which was designed very long back. So this is only analog waveform that is recorded there, and that will be given in the hospital, and then hospital will analyze, and then this 24 hours ECG, it will be recorded, it will be analyzed in about 2 hours time, and that result will be stated. But now with the technology advancement, we will be doing online and then trying to give the same or better analysis. So it depends on how we can implement. So this is another way of stress test. So we have to just go on the this treadmill and then try to see how our heart parameters are varying. So this is the way what we can do. Yeah, now we can just see some of the inventions, or maybe some of advancements that have taken place way back in 1920s, and so there is a development of refrigeration which led to the storing of blood. That's morning also we have discussed. because the blood transfusion has saved a lot of lives. So that if we want to transfuse instead of transferring from one patient to the other patient, we can refrigerate and then store it for a longer period. Or maybe in 1929, Drinker invented the first mechanical respirator, or what we call it as the ventilator today. So here what they do is in this whole metal box, body is placed inside and at the neck, and it is completely air tightened, and then the pressure of the whole capsule will be increased and decreased based on the increase and decrease of pressure. The blood, the air will go into the body and outside the body, or maybe that respiration will take place. That's what actually ventilator is doing. But of course, this is in today's ventilators. They are of much advanced versions. They are having different modes and different sensors placed in, rather than this crude one. But in 1929, this was the one what was started. And maybe the development of heart-lung machine. So here, the entire heart function and lung function is provided from outside the body by giving rest to the heart or even to lungs, so that they will be made some repair, or maybe if they are not functioning proper, so probably these sort of things. Even today, these heart-lung machines we do come across, and then they are very popular for heart transplantation, or maybe bypass surgeries and these sort of things. And of course, this is the today's machines are not this big, and then this rugged ones, or maybe these rude ones, or I should not say rugged ones. Rugged ones, even we are doing nowadays very rugged things with advanced technology. And development of electron microscope, which could able to give us ability to visualize subcellular structures and then try to understand what are the mechanisms going on and these sort of things. And same again, heart-lung mission in a different part. I mean, how it will, the 2007 model, whereas here it is a 1953 model. And artificial heart. So in some cases where heart is not functioning well, as I said, heart activity is to take blood and then send the blood with more force to outside the world. So that's what the function. Or what we can say is it is a pump house. Only thing is it is sending, it is a closed loop pump. It is not like what we are having water pumps at our home from sump. I mean, it will take water and then put it in the overhead tank. Here, the entire loop is interconnected. But when it is interconnected and it is having a mechanism to operate at different pressures also. As I said, left ventricle should be very high pressure, has to send blood into with a very high pressure, whereas a right atria should have very low pressure, so that the outside blood should reach the heart chamber. So if the pressure is not maintained properly, the circulation may not go as desired, and then as we said, food that is absorbed in the intestines and oxygen that is absorbed in this lungs cannot be distributed all over the body. So to maintain that, the pump house or maybe the heart has to work in a synchronous system or synchronous way or very systematic way. So this heart-lung artificial heart will, I mean, this is again a motor, I mean, which was designed in to perform the function of the heart. So it is being done. Of course, it's not, we can't say it is 100% success, but still they are coming up with the things, and then they are doing this. And again, one more, that is the heart-lung artificial heart or artificial lung, and all those things we have seen. But if we want to know whether the functionality of heart is going well or not, so all that we need is whether heart is getting proper blood supply or not. So that is done by the angiography. Angiography is in sense to visualize the blood vessels in the heart or maybe in any other part of it. But angiography is mainly developed first for the heart vessels. So that is the coronary artery, which is coming just out of aorta, is supplying blood to the entire heart muscle, because the heart muscle also requires food or maybe the oxygen and nutrients for work functioning. So that is done by the coronary artery. Suppose if coronary artery blocks somewhere, or maybe if it stops supply blood, then there will be some sort of plaque, and we can notice. So to identify that, this angiography is developed. Angiogram, what we call it as angiogram, is made. So there are some procedures. So there is one more advancement. Or otherwise, what we can come across is a pacemaker. So as I said, heart, the left atria, right atria, left ventricle, and right ventricle. Sorry. The right atria, right ventricle, left ventricle. So if they are functioning in synchrony with each other, and they are going according to the rhythm, there won't be any problem. But whenever there is a rhythm is obstructed, or maybe rhythm is lost, then we have to intervene from outside and then try to get them into rhythm, and then try to see, or maybe try to repair that one. So that sort of functions is done by a pacemaker. As I said earlier, SCA node is called as a pacemaker in morning session. That is the starting the pace of the heart. That is the activity of the heart for every cycle. So it will say just depolarize, repolarize, depolarize, repolarize at regular intervals. That is autonomic on its own, it will be doing it. Whereas if it fails in by some reason, then this pacemaker will try to do. So it is just like a small tin-like thing. So where the electronic circuitry and then appropriate battery is inside, that will be sometimes kept outside the body or sometimes kept inside the body. And from here, there are some few wires will go, and they will be generating the impulses, appropriate impulses supplied to appropriate position of the heart. Sometimes it may be supplied near SCA node, or maybe regular path, the pacemaker position, or maybe at AV node, or maybe left ventricle or right ventricle, or some wherever that is needed. So it is done. So that's sort of another instrument what we come across. And there is, I mean, of course, I didn't mention here, but it may come as a one diagram. There are defibrillator. So one defibrillator, it is whenever heart goes completely halt, or maybe when it stops, then they will send very high current through the body, and they try to bring back the activity of the heart to normal. So that is called as defibrillator. Or maybe artificial tissue. So that is whenever this heart valves, that is between atria and ventricle, and maybe ventricle and the aorta or pulmonary artery, there are valves. So if these valves are not functioning proper, or maybe if they get damaged, so then we may have to replace them. So for that, some artificial tissue is being generated, developed. It is, though the valve may be with pure metal or polymer, what we tried, but the joining point between the valve rim and the heart muscle. So that requires some sort of artificial tissue structures. So there are a lot of research going on in that direction. So that's what is one of the area that's what do. And that is electrical activity. So far we discussed on the functioning of the heart. So instead of electrical heart activity, if we want to know whether the blood flow between the atria chambers and ventricle chambers are going proper or not, or maybe the rhythmic contraction of the entire atrial wall or ventricle wall or the whole heart is going normal or not, is understood or maybe is done by echocardiograph. So here what we do is we are having a probe of ultrasound, and this will send ultrasound energy into the body, and based on the reflected energy of the what was sent inside, so it will form an image, and that is called as electrocardiogram. So electrocardiogram will give us the blood flow activity that is coming up, that is taking place in the heart. And of course, this echocardiogram is done for even abdominal studies or maybe structure of liver and these sort of things. But all that, what I want to bring in here is, we are trying to develop an instrument which can send energy, and based on the reflected energy, we try to make an image. So of course, this we can discuss afterwards again when we go for the imaging modalities. So maybe the probe looks like this, and then this is the system, and these are the images that what we can get, and placement of this probe. So basically, to identify the function of the heart, they place probe at 4 positions mainly: suprasternal, and then subcostal, and apical, and parasternal. So these are the this is paracostal, these two, and these are apical, and this is subcostal, and this is suprasternal. So these are the 4 positions they place, and they try to identify the function, or found the function of the atria. This is the right atria and left atria, right ventricle and left ventricle of the heart. So how they are functioning, and they try to understand by this echocardiogram. And coming to respiratory system, respiratory system is not all that involved like this heart is. Whereas this is only a passive mechanism, but only thing is, all that we have to find out is the passage of air from nostril and mouth, that will be going, that will be making a proper entry into the lungs, and within the lungs, whether it is getting distributed properly or whether it's not, whether there is some blockage in the passage. These are things what we can try to understand by respiratory system instruments. So this, as I said, these are all different. This is the path of airway, and see the abnormalities that what we can notice is the vocal cords. These are called vocal cords. They will be vibrating at different frequencies whenever we speak. Suppose if there is a small nodule or maybe some projections, they come on to this vocal cords, so they may not be closing properly. There will be hissing sound, what we can notice. So that may lead to loss of or maybe change of voice first, and maybe if it increases more, maybe there will be problem even for talking also, and that may even make some difficulty in breathing activities. And that's the other one. What we morning also mentioned is ventilation. So that's how the air goes in and comes out. That's more important. So that ventilator and these sort of things. And this all that we find out is whether we are properly able to breathe in and breathe out. This activity we try to use. There are heart wire anemometer, passive temperature sensing, and humidity sensor, and detection of carbon dioxide concentration. And this spirometer is the one which is mostly used for measurement of volumes, respiratory volumes, so how much air we are breathing in and breathing out, and what is the rate at which we are breathing. These sort of things are done by this spirometer. Yeah, this the present day electronic spirometers are like this. There will be a small unit through to which we will be flowing our air, blowing our air from mouth, or maybe we'll be taking in the air. So depending on the way the amount of volume and rate of breathing process is measured, and that is modeled with the sort of resistors, and then this is the way that what we can do, and this is the calculations that what we can what are there for each instrument. There are some different mechanisms how we can just do that. So this is the one what we can see in hospitals, how it is being blown. So once we blow into this unit, so that will be recorded, that will be connected to computer, and all that parameters will be displayed on the computer. So how these parameters, and these are again calibrated as I said earlier. So they calibrated based on the amount of volume that each blowing mouthpiece is used, and these are based on that. All those parameters are calculated. And there is one more pneumotachometer. So this says what is the air in and air out, and what is the force that we are applying, airflow that we are just making in breathing in and breathing out can be recorded in this fashion. All that is inside. There will be some some instant bridge is placed, and that will be used for measurement. And the other one is body plethysmograph. So morning we have seen one blood plethysmograph. Blood plethysmograph in either arm and leg. We try to put it in airtight enclosure and try to see how much blood that is coming into that particular area, and based on that we try to measure blood flow, blood volume measurement. Here body plethysmograph. So we try to keep person inside a airtight chamber and try to ask him to blow air through this clip, where sometimes the clip is blocked and sometimes it is free, and based on this performance we can measure what would be the force or velocity or volume that a person will be doing at different activities. So that will be measured here. That is what we can say total lung capacity. Principle is operation is based on the Boyle's gas law. That is the total PVR, no, or the total pressure, volume, and temperature. Based on that, it will be assessed, and then there are methods. Maybe to explain each one of it, it takes about a day or something. Maybe we may have to just go for particular technique and then try to understand little more on that. And about nervous system. So nervous system, the nerves are everywhere in our body. Right from head, brain is full of nerves, and from there to toe of our body. Everywhere these nerves are there, but all these nerves in the body are connected to the brain, and brain is the one which will be taking all decisions and then collecting the information, taking decision, and issuing commands to different parts of the body, both internal operations and external operations, like movement of our musculoskeletal system, as well as the internal secretion of all hormones and juices for our day-to-day life. So the recording of this nervous system mainly done by EEG analysis. EEG is only the brain electrical activity that is recorded by placing electrodes on the skull, and that system of placing these electrodes, as I said, for ECG recording, there are only 10 electrodes are taken, 4 of them are put on 4 limbs, and 6 are put on the chest and at specified locations. Here also, there is this system of placing electrodes in the skull is called a 10-20 electrode system or 10-20 electrode pattern. So here, what we take is from this nostril point to the inion point on the back, we try to measure this length, and this length is divided into 10%, 20%, 20%, 20%, 20%, and 10%. So at each junction, there will be one electrode placed. So something like this in the central. So here you can see this is central electrodes. And maybe here again, the distance from this nostril position to anion position, again it is divided into 10, 20, 20, 20, 20, 20, 10. And again electrodes are placed in the periphery. And there is one in the center, in between periphery and the central point. So there is one line of electrodes. So these all put together, there comes around 21 electrodes, whereas ear lobe electrodes are taken as reference. So by taking all these things and recording the potential, like what we have seen earlier, between 2 electrodes. So maybe the nostril electrode, or maybe the other one FZ, or maybe F3. So if we try to record, so there will be a waveform that we can notice here. So this waveform will give us information whether a particular function in the body is going well or not. Of course, it is not as clear as ECG, as we have seen that whenever the atria depolarizes, P wave will come, and then ventricle depolarizes, QRS will come, and ventricle relaxation, T wave will come. So that sort of say clear-cut information is not there in this EEG analysis, but all that is, there are certain parameters. We try to analyze the EEG signal in proper way and try to understand what, how the brain is functioning, our brain is thinking, our brain is issuing commands to different parts of musculoskeletal system. So this is a very active subject now, and in our lab also we are doing it as, say, brain-computer interface or man-machine interface. So this is a very upcoming area. I think by analyzing EEG, we try to understand and try to analyze or maybe do some advancement in the system. This is electromyogram. This is the muscle activity, or maybe the electrical signal that is generated by muscle, or maybe the proportional amount of cells that are excited to perform a particular activity is the resultant of the EMG. So here, suppose an artificial arm is to be operated, then the amount of signal that we have to use, that is dependent on the amount of force that we have to apply here, and which finger has to be closed, and how strong that grip should be. So these sort of things are dependent on this. So the electromyogram gives the functioning of the musculoskeletal system. So by recording this appropriately, again, placing electrodes on the muscle, like what we said for Heart, we have specified there are 12 positions, 10 positions, whereas EEG, as we said, 10-20 electrode system, around 21 positions. Whereas this muscle, depending on which muscle we want to measure, so we try to place our electrodes there and then try to record based on those signals. We can say whether that muscle is functioning proper or whether it is getting in disease or paralyzed or these sort of things we can understand. So these sort of artificial processes, I mean, if we want to develop, so we do this. And block diagram again is a normal, I mean, whatever this thing, place electrodes, instrumentation, and notch filter and comparator, and all these things. I mean, this is of not a new thing for any electronic or electrical engineer. So all that what we are doing is there is the signal generated in the body that we have to extract with the help of electrodes, do proper signal processing, and do appropriate instrumentation such that a device perform according to whatever the brain is communicating to the person. Yeah, if we see the major advancements in this instrumentation, we can, as we have discussed, heart-lung machine, heart pacemaker, cochlear implant. So this again we didn't mention anywhere. So here, this one is a small electronic device which is placed inside the ear. Normally, we come across people who are deaf. They'll be using some what is that, amplifier or hearing machine, what we call. So that generally whatever we speak, that will amplify like our loudspeakers, and it will present to this subject. Whereas this cochlea is the one innermost ear. That innermost ear, it can't be seen from outside, and that will be converting this sound mechanical energy into electrical signals, and that electrical signal will go to the brain. So when this cochlea gets failed, so the conversion of the external mechanical energy or maybe acoustic energy cannot be converted into electrical signals and then sent to brain. So that function is performed by this cochlear implant. So this is one more advancement. And magnetic resonance imaging, so that we'll discuss. I mean, maybe if we want to see whether any body parts are inside they are functioning well, or maybe they are good or shape, or maybe these are the things we can identify by MRI or arthroscopy, the knee imaging, and angioplasty, and bioengineered skin. That's what I said, artificial tissue, timed release drug capsules. So if we, rather than just putting a capsule and thinking that, okay, it is just delivering its activity right from the time t equal to 0. So we want to see that, okay, that has to be timely, it has to give for every 4 hours, it is supposed to release a drug or something like that. Or maybe capsule itself cannot, capsule need not have to deliver its medicine in the stomach. Maybe suppose it is supposed to be in the intestines, it is supposed to be delivered. So that probably we can devise a capsule in such a way that it will get only discharge its drug at the intestines or something like that. Hip joint replacement, artificial articulated joint, or kidney dialysis. So these are, much more. I mean, it's not, this is not the exhaustive list. There are a huge lot of instruments that are developed. No, at the end, I want to just make a statement. See, all that we have to say is, yes, doctors are saving the human body or humans by treating them, or by giving medicine and administering medicine or doing surgery and all that. But without the engineering effort, or maybe without the advancement of engineering technology, doctors cannot treat any patient, because right from the beginning, the moment they you want to examine the patient, a stethoscope is needed. Stethoscope is not the medical advancement. That is only an engineering advancement or maybe the physics. So it is not that, okay, medicine alone is saving the humanity, but it requires the sophisticated or maybe the advanced engineering or physical engineering and physics behind the medical understanding. Then only we can uh, have a good medical facilities for human being. Yeah, cochlea. I mean, I didn't. I was not sure it was here. So all that what we have here is, this is the outer ear, and from here it will be coming, and then this is the cochlea. I mean, these are the middle ear where these three bones that will be connected. So this part, this snail-like structure, this spiral structure, is called as cochlea. So here only the mechanical activity, sorry, the acoustic activity that is getting converted into electrical signals, and that will be sent to brain. So this part, this is the one what we say cochlear. So this cochlear process or maybe cochlear implant. So that is developed. So here, just like our mic, whatever we speak, I mean, voice go here, and that is mechanically that is converted into electrical signal. This electrical signal will come here, and here some electrodes are placed. So these electrodes will stimulate the membrane of the cochlea here, and that stimulus will generate electrical signals and then send it to brain. So here, this is outside, as I said, the mic, mic which will be connecting the information, microphone, and speech processor, cable to transmit, and transmitter coil, and here receiver coil inside this, and electrode array, and cochlear knob. So this knob will take information to the brain. So here again, there are a lot of understanding we should put in. So it doesn't mean that, okay, this cochlea, it is just converting voice into the mechanical energy into electrical signal. All that what we know is our speech is varying from our speech is consisting of a lot of frequencies. No, I mean from 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz. That's what we say audible frequency. But all that speech, maybe about 3 to 4 kilohertz we have. But here, all the 3 to 4 kilohertz is not identified by a single position of this cochlea. So this cochlea is called as a selective filtering nature, or the high frequency is identified in the beginning of the cochlea, only low frequency is being identified at the innermost part of the cochlea. So it is just like our this thing, no, instrument, each sari gamma. So each one will have a different frequency generators or this sort of thing. So here, the as and now, what we are having is about 8 positions are identified in the cochlea, and 8 electrodes are placed, and maybe we'll be giving impulses to these 8 electrodes, and we'll be generating 8 frequency bands according to the speech that has been spoken outside the ear. So I think this itself is an area where one can delve in and then try to get some advancement. And the other one is hip replacement design. So at our legs, I mean, when they are connecting with the torso of the body, so this is the joining position. So these joining positions, suppose if, I mean, there is every chance that it breaks, it will break. So here, this is a natural one, whereas here it got broken, and then artificial hip knob is placed here. So now this artificial metal that has to grow into the bone and that has to set. So this is the way that what we have to. Cannot locate the internet. Okay, are you able to hear? Edukondalu? Edukondalu, are you able to hear? Hello?
Hello, sir.
Are you able to hear?
Hello, sir.
Are you able to hear?
Yeah, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, it says
Yes, sir.
it cannot locate internet server or something. It's showing. I got doubt, so that's why I called.
No, sir. No, sir.
Yeah. So these are
No problem.
the instruments that what we have to go is, I mean, we have to go for different biomaterials, the composites, metals and ceramics and polyethylene, or maybe design criteria. So minimize stress shielding and stimulate positive bone remodeling. And there are a lot of methods. Of course, even in one's career, I mean, maybe one part of design, I mean, that itself will be a great thing if we could able to replace the original any part of our body. So these are some of the things. So this we can say different rehabilitative places, hand or maybe fingers, a leg. So we do see a lot of these sort of things in the movies or maybe in YouTube. So how they are, some people are really doing their normal activity with these sort of replacements. Yes, advancement has come up, but only thing is it is not very cheap and not at the same time it is very subject specific. So we have to just go further and then try to make is freely available or freely accessible to everyone. This is the one what I was mentioning, defibrillator. So whenever heart fails completely and then stops, then they charge these two, these are the two pedals or two electrodes, what we can call, and to a very high voltage, and they will discharge from here to here, one electrode to other electrode. Whenever it discharges, that current has to pass through the cardiac muscle. So when it passes through, the stopped heart starts functioning, and then that will come back to normal rhythm. And this is the the dialysis machine. So they take out blood from the artery and then they will come here, they purify and then put back into the person again. So this is the hemodialysis. And this is a ventilator. So how it will be supplying oxygen or oxygenated air to the person. It controls, I mean, as we have seen the drunken's ventilator. So now it comes this way, there will be some oxygen supply will be coming from outside and it will be mixing and then it will be administering the appropriate amount of oxygen to the subject. And this is an artificial stunt. Here, this is a stunt, what we can see. So we have to, wherever there is some plaque comes up in the arteries or veins, so that will block the passage of blood. So at that time, what we can say is from outside, we can take this sort of stunt, and it is just like taking a pipe and then putting in a passage to avoid any collapsing of passage. So there is an artificial stunt. There is another instrument, our bone densitometry. So here, what we try to do is maybe if we just go to next, I mean, X-rays. I mean, we understand what is that densitometry. Our body will respond differently for different frequency X-rays. So what here they do is they perform taking X-ray with the two different X-ray frequencies, and by manipulating this or by operating on these two results, then they could able to identify what will be the bone density in the body, or bone and tissue ratio in the body. So that's the one advancement. And here we can say evolution of stethoscope. In the beginning, there was only one single humans mononeural, and then by binaural stethoscope, and this is electronic stethoscope, which will amplify and then give a clear signal compared to here. Here it is only mechanical or physical physical vibrations that will be hearing in these two. That here that is converted into electronic signals, and that will be directly connected to PC or maybe any processing systems. Of course, this is like engineers. And nowadays, I don't think we are having any mini drafters or our icons, what we can say. For doctors, I mean, still stethoscope is the one which they have to identify themselves, so they are doctors. And this is these are some of the things. This is temperature measurement. This is a strip what somebody was asking. So this strip will change its color depending on temperature. So they mark these numbers, and based on this number, I mean, we can identify which what is the temperature below, to that particular area. So that will be strip will be placed on the forehead or maybe some place where it is not disturbed. And this is a sphygmomanometer. Instead of having a manual, yeah, this is a manual sphygmomanometer. Whereas here, this is a little bit automatic sphygmomanometer, and these sort of things. And this is biochemical analyzer. There is a blood test. Whenever we give blood, I mean, maybe analyzing different components of blood, this cholesterol or maybe sugar, or maybe red blood cells, white blood cells, and these sort of things. All those things now it is coming up. Maybe we may not be able to clearly understand now. I mean, once we want to do that, probably we have to go and then do some sort of studies on this. So biochemical analysis, it goes like this. Yeah, so that gives mostly of this physical instruments or maybe our electrical instruments that we can see outside. Now quickly we'll rush through, maybe only 10 minutes time is there. The imaging systems, as you have seen, I mean, all of you are familiar, I think, about this X-ray mission. So there's a Röntgen in 1896. He accidentally found out some reaction on a film which was placed under a table, and that is due to some high energy waves. So that he called as X-rays. So here X-ray tube will be placed and X-rays are generated that are passed through body, and beneath the body there will be an X-ray film, photographic film is placed. Wherever the bones or structure is present, that is appropriately represented as an image on the X-rays. Until 1896, there is no way that one can see the internal structure of the body. Only after this Röntgen's development of X-rays, one could able to see without harming or cutting the body, what is the structure of the structure inside. So here, this, as we say, this X-rays are passed and then film is placed here, and then that will be. So the first X-ray was taken on his own wife and her fingers, and then ring. It was shown clearly in the X-ray. It was, as I say, 23rd January 1896, and Röntgen got Nobel Prize in 1901. And the mechanism of this one is electrons are generated at a cathode of a tube, and the anode is given very high voltage. When there is high positive voltage, and where these electrons that are generated at the cathode, they will get attracted. So while attracting, they travel with high speed and they go and impinge on the anode. So that anode will generate, or maybe the internal structure of atoms of the anode, they get modified and they release some energy, So that energy is called as X-ray energy. So that's the one what is being used for identifying internal structures. So again, these are all theory. So what happens is X-ray and pass through the body, and it is the phosphorus screen and then photographic film, and then here we can see the amount of X-ray energy that has been absorbed. What we can do is here the X-rays are sent with a certain amount of energy, so that controlling of that energy is done based on the amount of voltage that we can give to the anode. So depending on once we give certain amount of voltage, so the electrons are attracted to that electron volt. So the energy maximum the energy of the released X-rays will have the whatever calculated the electron volts. So that energy if we give, and suppose if we place any energy absorbing material like our body or tissue or bones or maybe a plate, an iron plate, a copper plate, whatever it is. So they may, if that whole energy is not absorbed by the object that is coming in between, then whatever is the rest, remaining energy that will come and then impinge on the film. So that gives us the structure where is the low energy absorbing tissue are there, where the high energy absorbing tissue like bones are there, bone tissues are there. So that will reflect as a negative here, or maybe wherever more energy is absorbed, so here it will be block. Wherever less energy is absorbed, it will be white. So that's what we can see the bones, because more energy is getting absorbed. So we can see very low energy that will be released. So that low energy cannot make this film, this thing. So that would be given as say a different compared to tissue. So this is the way that what X-rays are being done. So this what we can say I naught is the energy we insert into a material, and maybe if we identify ID, so this I naught and ID are related by this Beer-Lambert's law. So this di by dx is equal to minus mu I. So mu is the attenuation coefficient of this material. So for bone, the attenuation is different. For tissue, attenuation is different. Bone, it is very high, where tissue is low. So depending on that, we can identify based on the energy that is reached out of the body, we can map that energy into an image. So this is all theory, and maybe based on that, that is what we have seen here is the entire body is exposed with the X-rays, and then we are getting the entire body image, or what we can say your body, our body is 3D body. When we stand here, it looks as if it is a 2D body, right? 2D plane. So that the total thickness of the body is compressed, and maybe that total volume or maybe absorption capacity of the body is put it as a dot here. So that is plotted on this 2D plane. Rather than this, later, I mean, it was noticed, they found, I mean, instead of that, CT, that is a computed tomogram in the sense, suppose if we want to identify, if we want to see, suppose if we make a cross section of the body and how it looks like if we look from the top of the body. So that's what it is called as a CT scan. So here again the same X-rays are being used, but those X-rays, rather than sending into just a floodlight onto the body, they will be sent like see, this is an X-ray tube. Some small slit is made. So in this slit, X-rays will come here. So this is the body. If we just make a cross-sectional cut of the body here, and now if we see from top, what we can see is this is the hand, this hand structure, and this is maybe right side of the chest and left side of the chest, and then left hand. So the horizontal cut if we make, so what they do is this X-rays, they are sent in this small pencil beam like thing, and each X-ray X-ray beam is identified by each detector. So by calculating this way and turning these detectors and this X-ray tube around the body, like what they put as this around the body, and then making appropriate calculations, they can extract the image like a cross-sectional image like this. Whereas in this case, what we can get is the image, what we can see that black structure here. So that way they can calculate. That is called a CT image. So this is another instrument. I mean, because here this is very sophisticated, and then there are so many modalities here again. Instead of having one section, the entire body if we want, and rather than taking section by section, they say it is a spiral-like thing. So this bed is moving inside, whereas the X-rays are being moved in such a fashion, in a curved fashion, in a spiral fashion, so that they will be taking the entire body slices, and then they can reconstruct and then get the entire 3D image of the body. And there are other mechanisms like PET, positron emission tomogram. Here some radioisotopes are placed in the body, and these radioisotopes will generate gamma rays, and these gamma rays will go in different directions, and by keeping electrodes around the head, and they calculate an image, so that what we can get as the PET, or maybe constant position positron emission, sorry, H has come out, positron emission tomogram. Here, this is the way, and the advantage of this one is, this is the radioisotope what we are placing inside the brain or inside any organ. So that is the functional attractor, or maybe it will go and attract to a particular